A wife discovers her husband marrying another woman, and what she did will shock you. A woman, a child in her arms, and a wedding that was about to seal an unforgivable lie. She wasn't invited, but she arrived. And when she crossed those doors, the atmosphere changed. No one knew her name. No one imagined why she was there. But a single phrase was enough to stop everything. Where are you watching us from? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. What you are about to see, you will never forget. Lucy sighed as she slid the needle through the delicate fabric of the dress. Her fingers, skilled and precise after years of practice, moved almost by instinct. The prom dress she was making would be beautiful, she thought, worthy of the special occasion for the young girl who would wear it. The sound of keys in the door announced Stephen's arrival. Nikki ran excitedly to greet him while Lucy carefully put away the dress she was working on. "Daddy, look at my drawing," the boy exclaimed, jumping around his father. "Very nice, champ." Stephen barely looked at the paper before ruffling his son's hair. "I'm tired. I'm going to take a shower." "Dinner will be ready in half an hour," Lucy commented, watching as her husband avoided her gaze. "I'm not hungry. I grabbed something on the way." Lucy nodded in silence, already accustomed to these types of answers. She noticed Stephen's suitcase by the door. "Another trip?" she asked, trying to make her voice sound casual. "Yes, early tomorrow. An important client in Boston. I'll be back in 3 days." "Boston again," Lucy murmured. It was the third time this month he was traveling to that city. During dinner, while Nikki spoke animatedly about his day at kindergarten, Lucy watched Stephen. Her husband was constantly checking his phone as if expecting an important message. The distance between them had become almost physical, an invisible abyss that grew every day. That night, after putting Nikki to bed, Lucy tried to talk to Stephen. She found him in the bedroom packing for his trip. "Stephen, can we talk?" He continued folding shirts. "About what?" "About us. We've barely spoken in months. Nikki misses you. I miss you. I'm busy with work, Lucy. You know it's a complicated time. These contracts are important. More important than your family?" The question hung in the air without an answer. Stephen zipped up the suitcase. "You should be happy. I'm building a better future for us." Lucy wanted to believe him. She wanted to ignore the signs, the secret calls, the new password on his phone, the way he tensed up when she got close while he was texting. But every day it was harder to fool herself. The next morning, Stephen left before dawn without saying goodbye. Lucy got up early to finish the dress she had to deliver that day. While she was sewing, her phone rang. It was Marcy, her best friend since childhood. "Lucy, how are you? We haven't spoken in days." "I'm good, just finishing an order." "And you?" "You won't believe what I saw yesterday. Remember my cousin Ellen, the one who lives in Boston? She sent me a link to the social page of the local newspaper, and what I saw froze my blood." Lucy listened halfway, concentrating on a complicated seam, until something caught her attention. "And among the weddings this weekend, I saw a familiar name, Stephen Montgomery. Your Stephen appears as the groom in a ceremony that will be celebrated this Saturday. The bride is Lauren Vanderveer, the daughter of a major businessman in Boston." The needle pricked Lucy's finger. A drop of blood stained the white fabric of the dress. The physical pain barely registered in her mind, eclipsed by the impact of Marcy's words. "Lucy, are you there?" "It must be a mistake," she managed to say finally. "Stephen is in Boston for business, not to get married." "It's not a mistake, honey. I clearly saw the photo and the name. The wedding is this Saturday at the Cathedral of the Holy Cross in Boston." Lucy felt the world stop. "This Saturday. Are you completely sure? I'll send you the link right now." "I am so sorry, Lucy." With trembling hands, Lucy opened the link Marcy had just sent her, and there was an article from the Boston local paper with the headline, "Vanderveer Montgomery Union, the Wedding of the Year." The photo clearly showed Stephen, smiling and elegant, next to a beautiful blonde woman. The text announced the wedding between Lauren Vanderveer and Stephen Montgomery for this Saturday, describing them as the perfect couple of the corporate world. The room began to spin. Lucy held onto the table to steady herself. "Marcy, I have to hang up. I'll call you later." Lucy searched for more information on the internet. She found Lauren's professional profile, luxury event planner, daughter of one of the wealthiest men in Boston. She saw photos of her and Stephen at social events over the last few months. In an image published in a local magazine, they appeared as The couple of the moment, at a charity gala. Lucy closed her eyes, trying to calm her breathing. There was no possible mistake. While she took care of their home, raised their son, and worked tirelessly with her sewing, Stephen had built another life, another identity, and in 3 days he would marry another woman. Mommy? Nikki's voice brought her back to reality. When is Daddy coming back? Lucy quickly wiped away a tear. Soon, honey, very soon. She needed to know the complete truth, no matter how painful it was. And when she had it, Stephen Montgomery would learn that some betrayals have consequences he couldn't even imagine. And you, what would you do if you discovered your partner was about to marry someone else? Share your opinion in the comments, and don't forget to like if you want to know how this shocking story continues. The apartment fell silent after Nikki fell asleep. Lucy sat in front of her computer. The article from the Boston newspaper was still open on the screen, reminding her that this was not a nightmare. Her husband, the father of her son, was going to marry another woman this Saturday. The wedding will be held at the Cathedral of the Holy Cross, read the text. An exclusive reception for 250 guests will follow at the Oaks estate, owned by the Vanderveer family. Every new search confirmed the inexplicable. She found mentions in local media about the promising New York executive who had won the heart of the Vanderveer heiress. She discovered photographs of Stephen at social events in Boston, always described as single. She picked up her phone and called Stephen. The phone rang several times before going to voicemail. She tried again. This time, it went straight to voicemail. With her heart hammering in her chest, Lucy called Marcy. "I need you to send me all the information you can find about this wedding," she said without preamble. "Lucy, you're trembling. I can hear it in your voice. Please, Marcy, I need to confirm every detail. My cousin Ellen could help. She lives in Boston and knows the Vanderveers. Do you want me to call her?" "Yes, please. Ask her everything she can find out." While waiting for news from Marcy, Lucy continued investigating on her own. She found an interview with Lauren in a fashion magazine where she talked about her love story with Stephen. They had met 8 months ago at a business conference. He had been persistent in pursuing her, and now they planned a life together in Boston, where Stephen would take on an important position in his future father-in-law's company. The phone rang. It was Marcy. "Ellen just confirmed everything to me," her friend said with a breathless voice. "The wedding is definitely this Saturday at 12 p.m. It will be the social event of the year in Boston. Ellen sent me a link to the private wedding website." Minutes later, Lucy accessed the page. A celebration of love, Lauren and Stephen. The website opened with an elegant animation. Golden flowers framed a message. "With great joy, Lauren Vanderveer and Stephen Montgomery invite you to celebrate their union." But what made Lucy drop the phone was the central photograph. Her husband, the father of her son, was smiling next to a beautiful woman with platinum blonde hair. Lucy recognized Stephen's smile, the one she lately only saw in old photos. He looked at Lauren with an adoration he hadn't shown her in a long time. Tears rolled down her cheeks as a mixture of pain and rage took over her. How could Stephen do this? How could he simply pretend to start a new life as if she and Nikki didn't exist? Lucy spent the night investigating, gathering evidence, documenting every finding. She discovered that Stephen had created a fake profile on social media where he presented himself as single and without children. She found press releases mentioning his recent move to Boston, although he maintained business in New York. Everything fit perfectly with his increasingly prolonged absences, his reduced financial availability, and his emotional distancing. At dawn, exhausted but with renewed mental clarity, she made a decision. She checked her bank account. The savings she had accumulated with her sewing work weren't much, but enough for what she planned to do. She called Marcy. "I need you to help me with something," she said with a firm voice. "Can you take me to the bus station tomorrow morning?" "Of course." "What are you going to do, Lucy?" "I'm going to Boston with Nikki. I need Stephen to face the truth of what he is doing." "You're taking Nikki? Are you sure?" "Yes. Stephen has not only betrayed me but also his son. I want him to see who he is really abandoning." "And what will you tell Nikki?" "That we are going to surprise Daddy on his business trip. He won't know the truth until it's the right moment." After hanging up, she booked bus tickets to Boston. Then she printed every piece of evidence she had found, the photos, the articles, the wedding invitation. She also searched for and found her marriage certificate and Nikki's birth certificate. During the day, she maintained a facade of normality for Nikki. She cooked, prepared lunch, helped with kindergarten homework, but her mind was in Boston, planning every step. That night, Stephen called as he usually did during his trips, a brief, superficial call. "How is everything over there?" he asked with a tone that Lucy now recognized as disinterested. "Everything is fine," she replied, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. "How is business going in Boston?" There was a barely perceptible pause. "Good, although complicated. I'll probably have to stay until Sunday." "Sure, no problem. Take the time you need." Lucy could almost see the relief on Stephen's face. "You're the best, Lucy. Give Nikki a kiss for me." "I will." "Have a good night, Stephen." Upon hanging up, Lucy felt a strange calm. There was no longer uncertainty, just a painful truth and the determination not to be a passive victim of Stephen's betrayal. While packing the suitcase for the trip, she found the first love letter Stephen had written her, kept in a box along with other keepsakes. "My love for you will be eternal," he had written. Lucy reread the words that once had made her cry with happiness. Now she understood that love could be as ephemeral as it was fragile. Her plan was clear. They would arrive in Boston, stay at a hotel near the cathedral, and on Saturday, just when Stephen was about to seal his betrayal with a nuptial kiss, she and Nikki would be there to show him exactly what he was abandoning. The morning arrived with a shy sun that barely illuminated the room. Lucy hadn't slept well. Images of Stephen with Lauren had populated her dreams, turning them into nightmares. She got up before Nikki, needing those moments of solitude to center herself. In the kitchen, while making breakfast, she mentally reviewed her plan. Saturday, when Stephen was about to start his new life, she and Nikki would be there to remind him of what he was leaving behind. "Mommy." Nikki's cheerful voice interrupted her thoughts. The boy entered the kitchen rubbing his eyes, his hair messy and his superhero pajamas wrinkled. "Good morning, my love." Lucy bent down to hug him, inhaling the scent of baby shampoo, a scent of innocence she had to protect at all costs. While Nikki devoured his toast with jelly, Lucy watched him, searching his features for Stephen's reflection. The same expressive eyes, the same smile that lit up his whole face. How could a father abandon that smile? How could Stephen build a life that excluded this wonderful child? "Mommy, why are you looking at me like that?" Nikki asked, wiping jelly from his chin. "Because I love you so much," she replied, forcing herself to smile. "So much that sometimes it amazes me." "I love you too," he said simply before going back to concentrating on his breakfast. "Nikki, I have a surprise for you," Lucy announced, trying to make her voice sound enthusiastic. "Would you like to go visit Daddy on his business trip? We could give him a surprise." The boy's eyes lit up instantly. "Yes, we're going to see Daddy. When?" "Today. Auntie Marcy will take us to the bus station and we will travel to the city where Daddy is working." "Awesome!" Nikki exclaimed, jumping out of his chair. "Can I bring my new spaceship to show him?" "Of course you can. Go pack your backpack with the things you want to take." While Nikki ran excitedly to his room, Lucy felt a pang of guilt. She was using her son's innocence, his love for his father, as part of her plan. But she quickly reminded herself that it wasn't she who had betrayed the family. It wasn't she who had decided to build a life based on lies. After taking Nikki to kindergarten for a few hours to run errands, Lucy returned home to finish preparing everything. The suitcase was almost ready, only a few details were missing. While arranging Nikki's clothes, memories assaulted her like waves. Stephen had been a good father at first, patient, affectionate, present. At what moment had everything changed? When did he decide that this life, this family, was no longer enough? A shiny object caught her attention from the bottom of Nikki's drawer. It was a small picture frame that Stephen had given the boy for his last birthday. It contained a photo of the three of them in the park, smiling under the sun last summer. "So you always remember that Daddy loves you," Stephen had said. Lies. All lies. In the mid-afternoon, when she picked Nikki up from kindergarten, she told him more details about their surprise adventure. "We are going to travel to a city called Boston," she explained as they walked back home. "Is that where Daddy is working now?" "Is it very far?" Nikki asked, jumping between the puddles left by a recent drizzle. "A few hours by bus. We can play, read stories, or look out the window during the trip." "And where will we sleep?" "In a hotel, like explorers. It will be fun." The boy nodded, enthusiastic about the idea. For him, everything was a big adventure, an exciting game, unaware that he was about to witness the collapse of the world he knew. At home, Marcie was already waiting to take them to the station. She hugged Lucy tightly and then bent down to greet Nicky. "Ready for your trip, champ?" she asked with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, worried about what her friend was about to face. "Yes, we're going to surprise Daddy," the boy exclaimed, oblivious to the tension between the two women. While Nicky ran to get a toy he wanted to bring, Marcie took Lucy's hands. "Are you completely sure about this?" she asked quietly, exposing Nicky to that situation. "I have no other choice," Lucy replied with determination. "Stephen must face the reality of what he is doing. He is not only betraying me, but also his son." Marcie nodded, understanding, even if she didn't completely agree. "Call me as soon as you arrive, and if you need anything at all, I'll be there on the first bus." The trip to the station passed in a silence loaded with unexpressed emotions. Nicky, in the back seat, sang happily, imagining his father's surprised face when he saw him appear. "You're going to be okay," Marcie whispered as she said goodbye at the station, hugging Lucy one last time. "You are stronger than you think." "I know," Lucy replied, and she really believed it. The pain and indignation had forged a new version of herself, one that would not allow anyone to treat her as someone disposable. As they boarded the bus to Boston, Lucy held Nicky's hand tightly. The boy looked at her with a confident smile, sure that his mother knew exactly what she was doing. "Everything will be okay, Mommy," he said, as if perceiving her unease. "Yes, my love," she replied, kissing his forehead. "Everything will turn out exactly as it should." The bus started, taking them toward a destination that would change their lives forever. While the streets of New York were left behind, Lucy closed her eyes and breathed deeply. She was ready to face Stephen, to show him the consequences of his lies, to reclaim her dignity. Tomorrow, at the cathedral in Boston, when Stephen was about to seal his new life with a nuptial kiss, she and Nicky would be there, and nothing would ever be the same again. Saturday morning dawned bright in Boston, as if the sky itself wanted to contribute to the deception of a perfect day. Lucy woke up before Nicky in the small hotel room they had shared. The previous day had been long. The bus trip, the arrival in an unfamiliar city, the search for a budget hotel near the cathedral. Nicky had enjoyed every moment as if it were an adventure, asking constant questions about when they would see Daddy. Lucy had answered with evasions, promising him it would be a special surprise. Moving carefully so as not to wake the boy, Lucy got up and approached the window. From there, she could see the imposing silhouette of the cathedral, where in a few hours her husband would swear eternal love to another woman. The rage and pain she had kept under control for Nicky's sake threatened to overflow. She breathed deeply, reminding herself that today was not the day to lose control. Today she needed all her dignity, all her strength. She showered quickly while Nicky was still asleep. Then, carefully, she took out of the suitcase the dress she had chosen especially for the occasion. A simple, elegant beige dress, sober and dignified, nothing flashy that could distract attention from the essential. She dressed with deliberate slowness, like a warrior putting on her armor. When Nicky finally woke up, Lucy was already discreetly made up and her hair pulled back in a simple bun. "Good morning, sleepyhead," she greeted, forcing a smile. "Today is the big day. We're going to surprise Daddy." "Yes!" the boy exclaimed, jumping out of bed with the inexhaustible energy of his 5 years. "Where is Daddy now?" "He's in a very important place, a big and pretty church that we will see soon. But first, we must have breakfast and get you looking very handsome." While they had breakfast in the small hotel cafe, Lucy mentally reviewed her plan. The ceremony was scheduled for noon. They would arrive with enough time to sit discreetly in the back pews. They would wait for the exact moment when the priest invited Stephen to kiss his new wife. That would be the perfect instant interrupt, the culmination of the lie, expose the truth just when Stephen believed he had sealed his new life. "Why are you so quiet, Mommy?" Nicky asked, interrupting her thoughts. "I'm just thinking about how happy Daddy will be to see us," she replied, hating having to lie to her son, but knowing it was necessary for now. After breakfast, she dressed Nicky in his most elegant outfit, navy blue pants, a white shirt, and a small vest that made him look older. The boy let himself be groomed without protesting, excited about the surprise they were preparing. "Is Daddy working at the church?" he asked while Lucy meticulously combed his rebellious hair. Something like that, she replied vaguely. You see, Daddy is participating in an important ceremony. At 11:30, mother and son left the hotel heading for the cathedral. Lucy held her purse firmly, with the important documents inside. The plaza in front of the cathedral was buzzing with activity. Guests, elegantly dressed, arrived in groups, some in luxury cars. Photographers captured the scene from different angles. It was evident that the wedding of Lauren Vanderveer and Stephen Montgomery was a major social event in Boston. "So many people," Nikki exclaimed, impressed by the movement. "Are they Daddy's friends?" "Some, perhaps," Lucy replied, observing the smiling faces of those entering the church, oblivious to the drama about to unfold. They waited discreetly in a corner of the plaza until most of the guests had entered. Lucy saw the bride arrive in a luxurious white car. For a brief moment, she felt a pang of pity for Lauren. Perhaps she was also a victim of Stephen's lies. "Who is that lady in white?" Nikki asked, following his mother's gaze. "She is part of the ceremony where Daddy is," Lucy replied, taking her son's hand firmly. "Come on, it's time to go in." With a decided step, but without drawing attention, Lucy and Nikki approached a side entrance of the cathedral. A young man with a list in hand controlled the guests' access. "Good afternoon," Lucy greeted with a polite smile. "We are family of the groom." The young man briefly consulted his list. "Your name?" "Lucy Montgomery," she replied, using her married name, knowing it wouldn't be on any list. "Wait." She introduced herself as Lucy Ramirez earlier, but here she uses Montgomery to claim her place? Or Ramirez to stay under the radar? The text says Ramirez then Montgomery later. Let's stick to the text. Lucy Ramirez here, saving Montgomery for the shock. "Lucy Ramirez," she replied, using her maiden name. The young man frowned. "I'm sorry, I don't find you here." "How strange," Lucy commented, feigning surprise. "It must be a mistake. We came from New York expressly for the wedding." The young man hesitated for a moment, looking at Nikki, who smiled innocently. "All right, go ahead," he conceded finally. "But please, sit in the back." "Of course, thank you." The interior of the cathedral was impressive. High vaulted ceilings, colorful stained glass windows, and for the occasion, white and gold floral arrangements on every pew. The place was almost full, with guests murmuring excitedly while waiting for the start of the ceremony. Lucy guided Nikki to the last pew, partially hidden behind a column. A perfect position. They could see the altar clearly, but they passed relatively unnoticed among the crowd. "Where is Daddy?" Nikki whispered, looking around confused. "He will appear soon," Lucy promised. "In the meantime, we must be very quiet, okay? Like when we play spies." Nikki nodded solemnly, entering the game. The organ music began to play, announcing the start of the ceremony. The guests stood up. Stephen appeared through a side door, elegantly dressed in a black tuxedo, accompanied by an older man who must have been his best man. His expression was a mixture of nervousness and happiness as he took his position in front of the altar. "There's Daddy!" Nikki exclaimed, pointing excitedly. "Shh." Lucy placed a finger on her lips. "Remember, it's a surprise. He can't see us yet." The wedding march resonated majestically in the cathedral. The main doors opened wide to reveal Lauren, radiant in an elaborate white dress, on the arm of a distinguished man who must be her father. The bride advanced slowly down the central aisle, smiling under the veil, completely oblivious to the presence of her fiancé's true wife. While the ceremony unfolded, Lucy kept Nikki entertained with whispers and small, silent games. The boy, although restless, behaved remarkably well, perhaps instinctively perceiving the importance of the moment. The priest spoke about love, fidelity, and commitment. Every word was like a slap to Lucy, reminding her of the vows Stephen had pronounced years ago and was now willing to repeat as if they had never existed. Finally, after the exchange of rings and promises, the moment Lucy had been waiting for arrived. The priest, with a solemn voice, pronounced the words, "Now that you have exchanged your consent before God and this congregation, I declare you husband and wife. Stephen, you may kiss the bride." Stephen delicately lifted Lauren's veil. Both smiled, seconds away from sealing their union with a kiss. It was then that Lucy stood up, picking Nikki up in her arms. The moment of truth had arrived. The sacred silence that preceded the nuptial kiss shattered like glass under the sudden echo of firm heels on the marble. The sound, rhythmic and deliberate, cut the solemn atmosphere like a sharp knife. Heads began to turn one by one, creating a wave of motion that ran through the cathedral from the back to the altar. Lucy advanced down the central aisle with her head held high, holding Nikki in her arms. Her expression was one of absolute determination, a cold calm that was more unsettling than any gesture of fury. Murmurs grew like a tide. Who is she? Why does she have a child? What is happening? The tension thickened with every step Lucy took toward the altar, where Stephen and Lauren stood frozen, their lips inches apart, the kiss interrupted before it was consummated. Stephen was the first to perceive the presence advancing toward them. Upon lifting his gaze, his face underwent a chilling transformation. First perplexity, then recognition, followed by a visceral terror that drained all color from his cheeks. His pupils dilated, his breath hitched, and his body instinctively took a step back like a cornered animal. "No, this can't be happening," he stammered in a choked whisper, so low that barely Lauren could hear it. The bride, bewildered by her brand-new husband's sudden reaction, followed the direction of his horrified gaze. Upon seeing Lucy approaching with a child in her arms, her expression transformed into confusion. "Stephen?" Her voice trembled slightly. "What's happening? Who is that woman?" But Stephen seemed to have turned to stone. His eyes, wide with panic, jumped frantically between Lucy, Nikki, and the cathedral exits, as if calculating an impossible escape. Sweat began to bead on his forehead under the lights. Absolute silence took over the venue when Lucy finally arrived at the foot of the altar. With deliberately slow movements, she put Nikki down on the floor, keeping him close with a protective hand on his shoulder. The boy, feeling the strange tension in the atmosphere, clung to his mother's skirt, suddenly intimidated by so many eyes fixed on them. "Good afternoon," Lucy greeted with a clear voice that resonated to the last corner of the cathedral. The perfect acoustics of the place amplified her words, endowing them with almost supernatural authority. "I regret interrupting this ceremony, but there is something everyone here should know." Lauren's father, an imposing man with a severe expression, stepped forward with an authoritarian gesture. "Who are you, and what is the meaning of this intrusion?" he demanded, his voice booming. "This is a private celebration. Leave immediately or I will have you escorted out." Lucy looked directly at him without a hint of intimidation. Then she turned her eyes to Stephen, who seemed to have shrunk under the weight of the imminent truth. "My name is Lucy Montgomery," she announced, emphasizing every syllable of the last name she shared with the groom. "I am Stephen Montgomery's legal wife, and have been for 7 years. The impact of her words was physically palpable. A collective gasp ran through the congregation, followed by stifled exclamations and scandalized whispers. Lauren, still holding her bridal bouquet, took a wobbling step back as if she had received an invisible blow. "Wife?" The word escaped her lips like a whimper. "What is she saying, Stephen? Tell this woman she is wrong. Tell her." But Stephen, with an ashen face, was incapable of articulating a word. His throat moved as if trying to swallow. His hands trembled visibly at his sides. "And this," Lucy continued, placing both hands on Nikki's shoulders, who looked at his father with confused eyes, "is Nicholas Montgomery, our 5-year-old son." The silence that followed was overwhelming, loaded with a tension so dense that it seemed to make breathing difficult for everyone present. For several seconds, the only audible thing in the vast cathedral was the stifled crying of an older woman in one of the front pews. Lucy's gaze locked onto Stephen like a poisoned dart. Her next words fell like whip cracks. "Aren't you going to say hello to your son before kissing your new wife?" Nikki, catching his father's name in the conversation and regaining some confidence, looked toward the pale man, standing motionless in front of the altar. Finally recognizing him amidst the confusion, he extended his little arms toward him, his eyes lighting up with innocent love. "Daddy!" he exclaimed with a high-pitched voice that echoed off the stone walls of the cathedral. "Daddy!" That childlike cry, full of joy and expectation, was like a dagger straight to the heart of everyone present. Some women stifled sobs. Several men looked away, uncomfortable at the heartbreaking scene. The contrast between the child's innocence and the father's dark betrayal was unbearably painful to witness. Stephen, as if waking from a trance, took a hesitant step toward his son. "Nikki, what are you doing here?" His voice sounded strange, distant, as if it belonged to another person. The boy, interpreting that movement as an invitation, let go of his mother's grip, and ran toward his father, his little arms still outstretched, his face lit up by the joy of the reunion. "Daddy, Daddy," he repeated as he ran toward him, oblivious to the drama unfolding. Stephen, out of pure paternal reflex, bent down and received his son in a mechanical hug. His eyes, however, were fixed on Lauren, whose face now showed the horror of absolute understanding. Is he your son?" she asked with a broken voice, barely an audible whisper. The bouquet of flowers fell from her hands, hitting the floor with a dull thud that resonated in the sepulchral silence. "You have a son? A family?" "Lauren, I can explain," Stephen tried, standing up clumsily while Nicky clung to his leg with adoration. "It's not what it looks like. Lucy and I have been separated for a long time. I was going to tell you. I was going to get a divorce." "Divorce?" The word came out like a whip from Lucy's mouth. "How curious. You never mentioned that word when you were sleeping in our bed. You never mentioned it when we had dinner together 3 nights ago, nor when you read a story to Nicky before sleeping." With a fluid movement, she took the marriage certificate out of her purse and extended it toward Lauren. "Perhaps you want to see this before listening to more lies." Lauren took the document with trembling fingers, her veil moving gently with every agitated breath. Her eyes scanned the paper while tears began to slide down her cheeks, ruining her perfect makeup. 7 years, she murmured, finally lifting her gaze to Stephen. "You've been married 7 years and told me you were single. You made me believe I was the love of your life. And this is Nicky's birth certificate," added Lucy. "As you can see, Stephen is listed as the father." The cathedral had become a hotbed of murmurs and stifled exclamations. People discreetly took out their phones, recording the scene from different angles. Some photographers hired for the wedding had abandoned all pretense of discretion and were openly capturing the moment a dream wedding turned into a public nightmare. "This is an outrage," roared Lauren's father, his face congested with anger. "Arthur, get this woman and that child out of here immediately and call security." But Lauren, in an unexpected gesture, raised a hand to stop her father. "Stop," she said with a surprisingly firm voice. "I want to hear the whole truth." She turned to Stephen, who seemed to have aged 10 years in the last few minutes. "Is all this true? Have you been living a double life for months? Have you lied to me every day since we met?" Stephen, trapped in the web of his own lies, looked around looking for a non-existent escape. There was no way out. With a defeated sigh, he finally nodded. "Yes," he admitted in a barely audible whisper. "I am married. I have a son." The words, so simple and devastating, unleashed chaos. Lauren, with a heart-wrenching scream, violently tore off her veil and threw it to the ground. Then, in a frenetic movement, she took off the ring recently placed on her finger and threw it directly at Stephen's face. "You are a monster," she screamed, her voice broken by crying and rage. "You stole 6 months of my life. You built our future on lies. I hate you." Nicky, frightened by the screams and sudden violence, began to cry and let go of his father's leg, running back to Lucy's arms, who lifted him protectively against her chest. "Shh. Calm down, my love," she whispered in his ear, rocking him gently. "Everything will be okay." Chaos had completely broken out in the sacred venue. Lauren's indignant screams, the priest's desperate attempts to restore order, the guests' scandalized exclamations, the contradictory orders from the bride's father, everything mixed into a discordant symphony of runaway emotions. And in the middle of the storm he himself had caused, Stephen remained motionless like a castaway, watching the waves wash away the remains of his ship. His face now showed the emptiness of someone who finally understands he has lost everything: his fiancée, his respectability, his brilliant future, and perhaps most painful, the unconditional admiration of his son, who was now crying scared in his mother's arms. Lauren, with tears running freely down her cheeks, looked one last time at Stephen with absolute contempt. Then, gathering the folds of her wedding dress, she turned around and ran out down the central aisle, sobbing uncontrollably. "Lauren, wait!" shouted Stephen, making a move to follow her, but the bride's father stepped in his path, his face contracted with fury. "Don't you dare get near my daughter," he hissed with a threatening voice. "You have ruined the most important day of her life. If you take one more step toward her, you will regret it." Guests were getting up from their seats, some surrounding Lucy with expressions of solidarity. Others approached Lauren's parents to offer support, and a third group simply headed for the exits, wishing to escape the scandal as soon as possible. "Ma'am," said an older woman approaching Lucy with a compassionate gesture, "what you did today requires extraordinary courage. Not just anyone would face a lie like that." Nicky, still in his mother's arms, had stopped crying but kept his face hidden in Lucy's shoulder, intimidated by the chaos around him. "Thank you," Lucy replied simply. "But now I must take my son home." She began to walk toward the exit, aware that her mission was accomplished. The truth had come to light, and what happened next was no longer her business. She just wanted to return to New York, to the safety of her home, far from the drama she had unleashed. She hadn't taken more than a few steps when Stephen's voice stopped her. "Lucy, wait." He caught up to her, dodging guests who tried to intercept him. His face, previously pale from surprise, was now reddened by a mixture of shame and fury. "How could you do this to me?" he hissed, grabbing her arm with excessive force. "Do you have any idea what you have destroyed?" Lucy pulled away with a firm movement, protecting Nicky, who clung to her tighter at the sight of his father so upset. "What I have destroyed?" she replied with a controlled voice, but loaded with contempt. "It was you who built a life on lies, Stephen. I only exposed the truth." "This wedding was my opportunity," he exclaimed, lowering his voice but without diminishing the intensity. His eyes shone with resentment. "The Vanderveers are one of the most influential families in Boston. This marriage would have secured our future. It would have given us the life we deserve." "Our future?" Lucy shook her head in disbelief at his audacity. "You were marrying another woman for us?" "Don't insult my intelligence, Stephen. You don't understand anything," he replied with disdain. "You've never understood my ambitions. You settle for that mediocre life, with your little sewing shop, while I tried to give us more." "The only thing you have given us are lies," Lucy retorted. "And now, Nicky and I will start a new life without you." Stephen changed tactics, his expression softening as he extended a hand toward his son. "Nicky, champ, come with Daddy. Let's talk alone." But the boy, sensing the tension, clung tighter to his mother, hiding his face. "Leave him alone," Lucy intervened. "He is scared by your behavior. We will talk about Nicky when you return to New York, if you decide to do so." She turned to leave, but Stephen tried to hold her back. It was then that two men, apparently friends of the Vanderveer family, blocked his path. "I think the lady has made it clear she wants to go," one of them said firmly. "You'd better let her leave in peace." Stephen looked around seeking support, but only found hostile or indifferent faces. His best man had disappeared, as had the few friends who had accompanied him. He was alone, abandoned by everyone. Lucy seized the moment to exit the cathedral. In the plaza, several onlookers had gathered, alerted by the commotion. Some local journalists were already present, trying to get information from the guests rushing out. "Ma'am, are you the groom's wife?" asked one, approaching with a microphone. Lucy ignored him and continued walking with a firm step until she moved away from the tumult. She didn't want to become the face of a media scandal. Her goal had never been public humiliation, but simply the truth. "Mommy, why was Daddy angry?" Nicky asked when they were far from the cathedral. "Doesn't he love us anymore?" Lucy kissed her son's forehead, searching for the right words. "Daddy is confused right now, honey. He needs time to think. We are going to go back home. Okay?" They took a taxi to the bus station. Lucy bought 2 tickets for the next bus to New York, which would leave in an hour. While they waited, she bought a hot chocolate for Nicky and a coffee for herself. "Will we see Daddy again?" the boy insisted, with that persistence typical of a 5-year-old. "We'll see, honey," she replied evasively. "Now the important thing is to get back home. Auntie Marcy is waiting for us." Meanwhile, at the cathedral, the chaos continued. Stephen, after failed attempts to speak with Lauren's parents, wandered through the side aisles, avoiding the accusing looks of the few guests who still remained. The priest, who had witnessed countless human dramas in his years of ministry, approached him with a compassionate but firm expression. "My son," he said, placing a hand on his shoulder, "you have committed a grave error. Lying is never the path." Stephen didn't even answer. His mind frantically calculated the losses. His relationship with Lauren, his position at the Vanderveer company, his social reputation, everything had vanished in a matter of minutes. He left through a side door, avoiding the journalists who were already circling the main entrance. With no fixed destination, he walked through the streets of Boston while the reality of his situation settled with crushing weight. He had nowhere to go. He couldn't go back to the apartment he shared with Lauren, and the idea of returning to New York to face Lucy and Nikki was equally unbearable. He found a small hotel near the train station. With a defeated expression, he checked in and went up to a narrow, poorly lit room. He sat on the edge of the bed and took out his phone. The screen showed dozens of notifications, missed calls, text messages, social media alerts. The scandal was already beginning to spread beyond the cathedral. Meanwhile, Lucy and Nikki boarded the bus that would take them back to New York. When the vehicle started, leaving Boston behind, Lucy felt an invisible weight lift from her shoulders. She didn't feel victorious or vengeful, she only experienced a strange peace, the certainty of having done the right thing, and the hope of a new beginning. Nikki, exhausted by the day's emotions, had fallen asleep with his head resting on her lap. Lucy gently stroked his hair, contemplating the landscape passing quickly by the window. Tomorrow would be the first day of the rest of her life, and she would face it with the same dignity with which she had faced Stephen's betrayal. The hotel room closed in on Stephen like a trap. The faded walls, the single bed, the old television, everything contrasted dramatically with the luxuries he had become accustomed to on his business trips. With trembling fingers, he opened a video posted on social media. Wife discovers infidelity in middle of wedding. The images, blurry but recognizable, showed the whole scene. Lucy advancing down the aisle with Nikki in her arms, her confrontation at the altar, Lauren fleeing in tears. The comments were merciless. Liar, scoundrel, he deserves the worst. His perfectly planned life had crumbled in a matter of minutes. His mind desperately sought external culprits, still unable to assume his responsibility. A text message interrupted his thoughts. It was from his direct boss at the Vanderveer Company. "Don't even bother coming in on Monday. We already packed your things. Your severance will be mailed." Meanwhile, several miles away, Lucy and Nikki finally arrived in New York after a bus trip full of sidelong glances and whispers. The video was already circulating, and some passengers had recognized her. Marcy was waiting for them at the station, her face a mixture of concern and pride. She hugged Lucy tightly, while Nikki ran around, exhausted from the trip but unable to contain his childish energy. "How are you?" Marcy asked in a low voice, without letting go of her friend. "Surviving," Lucy replied with a tired smile. "I'll tell you everything, but right now I just want to get home." The apartment welcomed them with its familiar warmth. Nikki ran to his room to greet his toys while Lucy collapsed on the sofa, physically and emotionally exhausted. "That was the bravest thing I have ever seen," Marcy commented, making coffee in the small kitchen. "Facing Stephen like that in front of everyone wasn't bravery," Lucy replied, rubbing her temples. "It was survival. I couldn't let him erase us from his life as if we had never existed." "Mommy," Nikki interrupted, peeking out from his room with a confused expression. "Where is Daddy? Why didn't he come back with us?" Lucy exchanged a look with Marcy, desperately searching for the right words. How to explain to a 5-year-old child that his father had tried to form another family, erasing them from his existence. "Come here, honey," she said finally, patting the sofa beside her. Nikki approached and sat down, observing her with those eyes identical to Stephen's. "Daddy has important matters to resolve in Boston. Very complicated work matters." "But he saw us," insisted the boy. "He was there in that big church. I saw him, and he hugged me." "Yes, he saw us," Lucy confirmed, stroking her son's hair, "and he was very happy to see you. But he had to stay for those important matters. He will talk to you soon, I promise." The lie tasted bitter in her mouth. But what alternative did she have? Someday, when Nikki was older, perhaps he could understand the complexity of what happened. For now, preserving his innocence was the priority. "Can I call him?" Nikki asked, brightening at the possibility. "Not right now, sweetie. It's late and you need to bathe and have dinner. Maybe tomorrow." Marcy intervened, offering to make Nikki his favorite dinner. The boy, easily distracted at his age, momentarily forgot the subject and followed Aunt Marcy to the kitchen, chattering about the huge bus they had traveled in. When Nikki finally fell asleep, Lucy and Marcy sat in the living room with glasses of wine. The silence between them was comfortable, the kind of silence that only exists between lifelong friends. "What will you do now?" Marcy finally asked. Lucy contemplated the red liquid in her glass, reflecting, "Rebuild my life. And Stephen, I suppose he will eventually return. Not for me, but for Nikki. And when he does, we will establish the new rules of our relationship. Do you think he will try to get revenge for exposing him?" Lucy shook her head. "Stephen loves appearances. He will try to minimize the scandal, not fuel it." Her phone vibrated. A message from Stephen. "We need to talk. What you did was unforgivable." Lucy turned off the phone without answering. Tomorrow would be another day with new challenges, but for tonight, she just wanted to rest. The scandal exploded on social media with the virulence of a forest fire. Videos taken by guests multiplied, each showing a different angle of Stephen Montgomery's public humiliation. Sensationalist headlines proliferated. Vengeful wife ruins luxury wedding. Man with double life discovered at the altar. Matrimonial scandal shakes high society. The news even reached traditional media, where journalists and panelists debated infidelity, female dignity, and the social impact of publicly exposing cheaters. Without seeking it, Lucy had become a symbol for many women who saw her action as an act of poetic justice. 3 days after the incident, Stephen returned to New York. His appearance was unrecognizable. Dark circles under his eyes, unshaven, clothes wrinkled. The brilliant executive had vanished, leaving in his place a defeated man. He called Lucy to ask to meet at a coffee shop near her house. "We need to talk about what happened," he said with a tired voice when she sat across from him, "and about Nikki." "There isn't much to talk about what happened," Lucy replied calmly. "You lied. I discovered you. I exposed the truth. End of story." "You publicly humiliated me," he hissed, leaning over the table. "You destroyed my career, my reputation, my future. You destroyed our family with your lies," she replied, without raising her voice. "The consequences are yours, not mine." The conversation drifted toward practical matters. Nikki's child support, visits, division of assets. Stephen was surprisingly reasonable on these aspects, perhaps aware that he was in no position to demand anything. Arthur Vanderveer carried out his threat, he commented while paying the bill. "I'm on a blacklist. No major company will hire me now." "You'll find something," Lucy replied without offering more comfort. "You're skilled at reinventing yourself." Meanwhile, Lucy's life continued its course, trying to maintain normalcy. She rejected several offers for interviews, ignored messages from journalists, and blocked strangers on her social media. Her pain and healing process were private, not a spectacle for anyone. Marcy, converted into a sort of voluntary bodyguard, filtered calls and visits, protecting the small sanctuary Lucy had created for herself and her son. "There is a lady at the door," she announced one afternoon. "She says she is Lauren's aunt and wants to speak with you." Lucy, surprised, agreed to see her. Carmela, an elegant woman in her 60s, entered with a serene expression. "I haven't come to reproach you for anything," she clarified upon sitting down. "On the contrary, what you did required a courage that few possess." "How is Lauren?" Lucy asked, genuinely concerned. "Devastated, but recovering. The truth hurts, but it is better than living a lie." Carmela paused. "I came because I think you should know. Stephen tried to contact her yesterday. He told her everything had been a misunderstanding, that you and he were separated." Lucy shook her head in disbelief at Stephen's persistence in his lies. "Lauren sent him to hell, of course," continued Carmela with a satisfied smile. "But I wanted to warn you. That man does not seem to understand the magnitude of his actions." Carmela's visit, although brief, left Lucy thoughtful. Stephen continued trying to manipulate reality in his favor, unable to accept the consequences of his acts. A week after the scandal, as media interest began to wane, Stephen had his first visit with Nikki. He arrived with expensive gifts, trying to compensate with objects for what he couldn't give emotionally. "Why don't you live with us, Daddy?" the boy asked with the innocence proper to his age. Lucy, observing discreetly from the kitchen, held her breath. "Daddy has to live somewhere else for a while," Stephen replied, avoiding looking toward where Lucy was. "For work. But I will come to see you often. I promise." More lies, thought Lucy. Some people never change. The following weeks passed in a strange limbo. Daily life slowly resumed its rhythm, but nothing was the same. The scandal, although painful, had acted as a catalyst for a change that had been postponed for too long. For the first time in years, Lucy felt she controlled her own life. One afternoon, she received an unexpected email. It was from a women's magazine requesting an interview. About to reject it like all the previous ones, something in the respectful tone of the message made her stop. "We are not looking for the sensationalism of the scandal," wrote the journalist. "We want to talk about how women can rebuild themselves after a betrayal. Your dignity has inspired many." Lucy closed the email without answering immediately. She needed to think. Perhaps her experience, shared properly, could help other women in similar situations. Perhaps the pain transformed into testimony could acquire a greater purpose. The sewing machine hummed rhythmically while Lucy worked on a party dress. Her fingers, skilled and precise, guided the fabric under the needle with the security of someone who completely dominates her craft. The order had to be ready by the weekend, and although there weren't enough hours, she felt strangely at peace. 2 months had passed since the scandal in Boston. Life had found a new rhythm, different, but not necessarily worse. Stephen visited Nikki regularly, maintaining a cordial but distant relationship with Lucy. The divorce terms were almost agreed upon. The storm had subsided, leaving behind a transformed but serene landscape. "Mommy, look what I drew!" Nikki exclaimed, interrupting her thoughts. He held a colorful drawing of what seemed to be his new reality. Him in the center, Lucy on one side, Stephen on the other, separated, but both smiling. "It's beautiful, my love," she replied, hugging him. This child, with his capacity for adaptation and his generous heart, was her greatest treasure and her most powerful motivation. The doorbell rang, interrupting the moment. It was Elise, a longtime client coming to pick up an altered dress. "Lucy, how wonderful," she exclaimed upon seeing the garment. "No one gets these finishes like you. You are an artist." While Elise tried on the dress, she commented casually, "By the way, I saw your interview in Woman Act magazine. It was very brave of you to share your story." Lucy nodded, remembering the decision to accept that interview after rejecting so many. The journalist had been respectful, focusing on her recovery process rather than the lurid details of the scandal. The result had been a dignifying article on female resilience. "Hey," continued Elise, "I showed your work to my sister who is getting married in the spring. She is looking for something unique, not the typical store-bought dresses. Could you design something special for her?" The proposal took Lucy by surprise. Until now, her work had been limited mainly to alterations and occasionally making simple garments. A wedding dress was a much more ambitious project. "I could try," she replied cautiously. "Tell her to come by and we can talk about what she has in mind." When Elise left, Lucy remained thoughtful, remembering the moment she decided to accept that interview. After meditating on it for days, Lucy accepted. The interview was conducted in her own living room, among scraps of fabric and the occasional hum of her sewing machine. She spoke honestly about pain, betrayal, but also about the importance of finding inner strength and rebuilding. "Sewing taught me something fundamental," she had told the journalist. "When a garment tears, you have 2 options: throw it away or repair it. And if you decide to repair it, sometimes it ends up stronger and more beautiful than before." The article, published last week, had generated a surprising response. Besides Elise, 3 other old clients had contacted her, mentioning having read it, and now inquiries were arriving from women who had never required her services before. The phone rang again. It was a woman named Patricia, who explained she had seen the interview and needed a special dress for her daughter's graduation. "I was impressed by your story," the woman commented, "and the photos of your work that appeared in the article are exactly the style I am looking for." After hanging up, Lucy looked at the living room that served as her improvised workshop. With the growing clientele, the space was becoming increasingly insufficient. Scraps of fabric accumulated in a corner, patterns occupied the dining table, and she barely had a dignified place to receive clients during fittings. "Nikki," she said during dinner, "I was thinking about making some changes to the house." "Are we moving?" asked the boy, opening his eyes wide. "No, my love, but I want to transform the guest room into a sewing studio, a special place where Mommy can make pretty dresses." "And where will Grandma sleep when she comes?" "On the sofa bed in the living room." "Does that sound okay?" Nikki nodded, chewing thoughtfully. "Can I help you decorate it?" "Of course, it will be our special project." They dedicated the following weekend to transforming the room. Lucy moved the furniture, painted the walls a soft cream tone that reflected light better, and reorganized the space to maximize functionality. With part of the earnings from recent orders, she invested in a proper cutting table and a professional mannequin. Nicky's contribution was naturally more symbolic than practical. Being 5 years old, his help consisted mainly of passing brushes without paint over already painted walls, handing over the wrong tools, and filling the process with laughter and incessant chatter. However, his greatest contribution was the colorful drawings Lucy hung on one wall, simple figures representing dresses, according to a preschooler's imagination. "It's so you have inspiration, Mommy," he explained, with the seriousness only a child can show for such important things. The result transformed not only the physical space but also Lucy's attitude toward her trade. She was no longer simply a seamstress doing alterations. Now she had a true atelier, small but professional, where she could receive clients and develop her own designs. The first to visit the new space was Elise's sister, who was delighted with both the place and the sketches Lucy presented for her wedding dress. "It's exactly what I was looking for," the young woman exclaimed, "simple but elegant. Unique but not extravagant." As more women contacted Lucy after reading the article, she found herself expanding her vision of the business. "You should give your business a name," Marcy suggested one afternoon while watching Lucy work on the hem of a dress, "something that represents who you are now." A name? The idea had never occurred to her. Sure, like a personal brand, something that defines you. That night, Lucy sat in her new workshop with a notebook and pencil. The words emerged almost instinctively. Lucy Strong. It wasn't just a play on words, it was a declaration of who she was now. The next day, she designed simple but elegant business cards with her new trade name. She also created a small sign for the door of her home workshop. The following weeks brought more orders. Women who had seen the interview or had been referred by satisfied clients. In her new space, surrounded by threads, fabrics, patterns, and her son's artistic creations, Lucy found something she thought lost forever: inner peace. With every stitch she made, with every design she imagined, Lucy wasn't just sewing beautiful garments for others, she was also sewing her own story, repairing tears, reinforcing weak seams, transforming scattered scraps into something new and beautiful. The insecure woman, who once had been the one to accept excuses and endure absences, had been left behind. In her place was emerging Lucy Strong, a woman who knew her worth, who had reclaimed her dignity, and who now sewed not only with threads and fabrics, but with determination and hope. Evening fell over New York with a soft golden light entering through the windows of Lucy's atelier. Business was going well. Clients multiplied thanks to word of mouth, and Nicky adapted better every day to his new routine. The doorbell interrupted her concentration. It would probably be Carmen for her last fitting before the wedding. Lucy left the needles on the table and headed to the entrance, adjusting her hair on the way. Upon opening the door, time seemed to stop. Stephen stood in front of her with a bouquet of flowers in his hand and an insecure smile on his lips. He wore an elegant suit, his hair perfectly combed, as if he had calculated every detail of his appearance. "Hi, Lucy," he greeted with that velvety voice that had enchanted her so many times in the past. "Can I come in?" "I came to see Nicky." Lucy remained motionless for a moment, surprised by the unexpected visit. They had agreed on a structured visitation schedule, alternate weekends, phone calls on Wednesdays. Today was Thursday, an ordinary day. "You didn't warn me you were coming," she finally replied, without accepting the flowers or moving from the entrance. "I know, it was spontaneous. I finished a job interview nearby and thought about stopping by to say hi to my son." He paused, extending the bouquet. "These are for you, for the success of your business." "Nicky is finishing his homework," said Lucy, ignoring the gesture. After a moment of hesitation, she stepped aside slightly. "You can come in, but only for a moment. He has to eat dinner soon." Stephen entered, leaving the flowers on a side table when it became clear Lucy wouldn't accept them. His eyes scanned the space, observing the changes: new furniture, redecoration, the absence of photographs in which he appeared. "The place looks good," he commented, trying to start a casual conversation. "Different, but good." "Thanks," Lucy replied dryly while calling Nicky. "We've made some changes." The boy appeared, running from his room, lighting up upon seeing his father. "Daddy!" he exclaimed, throwing himself into his arms. Stephen lifted him with a genuine smile, the first real emotion Lucy had seen him show in a long time. "Champ, how are you? I missed you so much." While father and son chatted animatedly about school, friends, and the latest toys, Lucy retreated to the kitchen to make coffee. She kept the door open, discreetly observing the interaction. Stephen seemed genuinely interested in Nikki's life, asking him questions, listening to his answers, promising to take him to the amusement park next weekend. When she returned with the coffee, she found Stephen examining some sketches she had left on the living room table. "These are impressive," he commented. "I didn't know you had so much talent." "There are many things you didn't know about me," she replied, taking the sketches and putting them in a folder. "Lucy, I know things are tense between us, but for Nikki's sake, we should try to be friends." She looked directly at him, without a trace of the insecurity that had characterized her for so long. "We are not friends, Stephen. We are parents of a child who needs us both. Let's not confuse things." "Always so direct now," he replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I preferred you when you were softer." "I preferred myself that way too," answered Lucy. "The difference is that now I prefer myself as I am." The visit continued along those lines. Him trying to regain certain intimacy, her maintaining an invisible but impassable wall. When it was finally time for Stephen to leave, Lucy walked him to the door while Nikki went back to finish his homework. "I want you to know I respect what you are building," said Stephen, suddenly serious. "But Nikki is my son too, and I want to be part of his life, not just in scheduled visits." "Then respect the boundaries we have agreed upon," Lucy replied firmly. "Call before coming. Stick to the schedules. Don't make promises you aren't going to keep. If you want to be a present father, prove it with actions, not words." "You were always so inflexible," he commented, shaking his head. "That's why we never really worked." "No, we didn't work because you were never honest, neither with me nor with yourself." The door closed behind Stephen, but his presence remained like an echo in the apartment. Lucy leaned against the wood, breathing deeply. These encounters always left her emotionally exhausted. The ease with which Stephen tried to manipulate situations, insinuate himself back into her life, act as if he had some right over her emotions. It was exhausting. That night, Lucy updated the visitation calendar and emailed it to Stephen. She added a clear note: "Any visit outside this schedule must be consulted at least 48 hours in advance. Surprise visits will not be accepted." Shortly after, she received his reply: "I understand. Although I think you are being excessively rigid, you weren't like this before." Lucy smiled upon reading his message. Before, she was precisely the person she no longer wanted to be. The woman who accepted any explanation, who constantly adapted to others' desires, who doubted her own worth. That Lucy had died in the cathedral in Boston. "The agreed schedules are non-negotiable," she replied simply, and turned off the phone. The Lucy Strong atelier had gone in just 6 months from being a modest space with a single seamstress to becoming a bustling center of creativity. The walls, once bare, now exhibited photographs of satisfied clients wearing her creations, clippings from magazines mentioning the business, and framed sketches of her most successful designs. "We need more space, boss," commented Teresa, an experienced seamstress Lucy had hired when demand began to exceed her individual capacity, along with another industrial machine for heavy work. "I know," replied Lucy, reviewing the order book. "I'm considering the space next door. It becomes available next month." Along with Teresa, she had incorporated Marina, a young fashion design graduate who brought fresh ideas and updated technical knowledge. The dynamic between the three worked wonderfully. Lucy provided the vision and client contact, Teresa the technical experience, and Marina the innovation and youthful energy. But Lucy was aware of her limitations. She knew how to sew and design, but business management was unknown territory. Therefore, she had enrolled in a night course on small business administration 3 times a week. After closing the atelier and having dinner with Nikki, she attended classes where she learned about accounting, marketing, inventory management, and strategic planning. "You should create a professional website," her professor suggested upon reviewing her business plan. "Your presence on social media is good, but you need a platform to show your full catalog." Following this advice, Lucy hired a small digital marketing agency. In a few weeks, Lucy Strong not only had an elegant website but also a coordinated social media strategy that multiplied her visibility. The name of her brand had become her hallmark, appearing discreetly embroidered on every garment, printed on business cards, and on the recycled paper bags where she delivered her creations. More than a trade name, it was a reminder to herself, strong, resilient, capable of rebuilding herself from the ashes. One afternoon, while reviewing comments on Instagram posts, Lucy paused at a name that felt painfully familiar. Lauren Vanderveer had left a message under the photo of a party dress. Elegant and sophisticated design. I admire your work and your trajectory. Lucy's heart skipped a beat. Was it really her, the woman who almost became Stephen's second wife? She checked the profile. Indeed, it was Lauren Vanderveer. Her face, now smiling in professional photographs, was unmistakable. After a moment of hesitation, Lucy replied with a simple, "Thank you for your kind words," and closed the app, trying not to give it more importance. But the idea that Lauren was following her work unsettled her for days. The success of the business continued to grow. Local fashion magazines began to mention Lucy Strong as a discovery, an oasis of personalization in a world of mass production. She hired an administrative assistant who handled appointments, orders, and basic accounting, allowing her to concentrate on what she did best, designing and personally attending to her clients. "You should consider a small, ready-to-wear collection," Marina suggested one morning. "Exclusive pieces, but not unique, that we can have available for clients who don't want to wait for the full custom-made process." The idea was brilliant. Lucy began designing some versatile models representing the essence of her emerging style: elegance without ostentation, comfort with sophistication, unique details on classic designs. To show her new creations, Lucy organized a small presentation in her workshop. She invited some loyal clients, close friends, and a couple of contacts she had made through the magazine interview. The space was limited, but the warmth and enthusiasm compensated for the modesty of the place. The women who attended responded with sincere admiration to the designs. Several ordered garments that same afternoon, surprising Lucy with the good reception of her work. Among the congratulations and conversations, Marcy approached Lucy with a worried expression. "I don't want to alarm you," she said in a low voice, "but there is someone outside who has been looking through the window for a while. I think it's Lauren Vanderveer." Lucy tensed momentarily. Then, breathing deeply, she made a quick decision. "Invite her in," she replied with determination. "If she came all this way, she must have her reasons." Marcy nodded and went out to the street. Moments later she returned, accompanied by Lauren, who looked as elegant as Lucy remembered, although with a less haughty, more accessible air. "Thank you for inviting me in," said Lauren with a slightly trembling voice. "I wasn't sure how you would react to seeing me." "It's been a long time," replied Lucy, offering her a glass of champagne. "I'm curious to know what brings you here." "Admiration, mainly," confessed Lauren. "I've followed your work on social media. What you have built is impressive." The conversation was interrupted by other guests claiming Lucy's attention. With an apologetic gesture, she stepped away, silently promising Lauren they would continue talking later. The night advanced between congratulations and toasts. When the last guests left, Lucy found Lauren examining a dress from the collection with attention. "It's really beautiful," she commented upon feeling Lucy's presence. "You have a special gift." "Thank you," replied Lucy, starting to collect empty glasses. "Now, why don't you tell me what you really came for?" Lauren smiled, appreciating the frankness. "I would like to talk to you, but not here, not now. Could we meet tomorrow? I'll treat you to lunch." Lucy considered the proposal. Part of her wanted to reject it, keep the past where it belonged. But another part, the stronger one now, felt curious about this woman who in a certain way had shared a vital experience with her. "Okay," she finally agreed. "Tomorrow at 1. I know a quiet place where we can talk." The restaurant Lucy had chosen for their meeting was a small family establishment away from the hustle of downtown. Lauren arrived punctually, dressed with sober elegance. Upon seeing Lucy already seated at a table in the back, she breathed deeply before approaching, as if gathering courage. "Thank you for agreeing to see me," she said upon sitting across from her. "I know it must feel strange to you." "I confess it does," replied Lucy frankly. "But life is full of unexpected situations, don't you think?" They ordered their dishes, and after a brief, uncomfortable silence, Lauren began to speak. "After the incident at the church, I spent months hating you," she confessed, looking directly at Lucy. "I blamed you for ruining the most important day of my life. It was easier to direct my anger toward you than to accept that Stephen had lied to me completely." Lucy nodded, understanding that defense mechanism perfectly. "It's natural to seek external culprits when we get hurt. But over time I began to see things differently," continued Lauren. "You weren't the villain of the story. You were another victim like me. The difference is how we reacted to the betrayal." The waiter brought their appetizers, creating a natural pause in the conversation. When he walked away, Lauren resumed the thread. "I literally sank. I spent weeks locked in my parents' house, crying, pitying myself, unable to face the outside world. Meanwhile, you rebuilt your life, created a successful business, took care of your son. It wasn't easy," clarified Lucy. "I had terrible moments, entire nights crying after putting Nikki to bed, asking myself why I hadn't been enough, what I had done wrong." "But you got up," insisted Lauren. "That is what I admire most, your capacity to transform pain into something positive." "Do you know what the most absurd thing is?" commented Lauren suddenly. "Stephen tried to contact me a few months ago. He sent me a message saying everything had been a misunderstanding, that he really loved me, that he was getting divorced." Lucy couldn't help but laugh. "Some people never change." "Exactly. He is a narcissist," affirmed Lauren with vehemence. "A pathological manipulator. He didn't even apologize properly for lying to me for months. He just tried to continue where we had left off, as if nothing had happened." "How is your son?" asked Lauren with genuine interest. "This situation must be hard for him." "Nikki is incredibly resilient," replied Lucy, her face softening when speaking of her son. "He misses having his father at home, sure, but he is adapting well." "I'm so sorry. No child deserves to go through something like that. I came here for another reason too," Lauren confessed when they were having coffee. "I wanted to apologize personally." "Apologize?" Lucy looked at her confused. "You didn't do anything to me. You didn't know Stephen was married." "No, but after the scandal, when the story went viral, some people close to me said horrible things about you on social media. Friends, cousins, they were indignant on my behalf and attacked you unfairly. I should have stopped them, clarified that you weren't the villain. But I was too sunk in my own pain to defend myself, let alone defend you." "I don't need your apologies, but I accept them," Lucy replied finally. "We all do what we can with the cards dealt to us." When they finished eating, Lauren insisted on paying the bill. Then, unexpectedly, she asked Lucy to accompany her to her atelier. "I would like to see more of your work. And if I'm honest, I need to renew my wardrobe. After the non-wedding, I moved from Boston to New York to start over. I'm starting my own event planning company here, and I want to make a good impression." In the atelier, Lauren examined the garments in the collection with genuine admiration. She tried on several dresses and finally selected 3, in addition to ordering a custom-tailored suit for professional occasions. When she was leaving with her carefully packaged purchases, Lauren stopped at the door and looked at Lucy with a serene expression. "You know, of this whole story, you were the only one who got up with dignity. You didn't sink into pain nor seek revenge. You simply built something new and beautiful. I will follow your example." The email arrived one spring morning. "Dear Ms. Strong, we are pleased to invite you to the first meeting of New Entrepreneurs of New York. The Chamber of Commerce is organizing an event to highlight emerging businesses in the city, and Lucy Strong has been selected to participate. You should accept," opined Marina when Lucy shared the news. "It's a perfect opportunity to expand our clientele." Although the idea of exposing her work to a wider audience intimidated her slightly, Lucy decided to accept the challenge. During the following 2 weeks, along with her small team, she carefully selected the pieces. She would exhibit a balanced sample of custom garments and items from her ready-to-wear collection. The day of the event, they set up an elegant booth in the designated pavilion. They had opted for a minimalist aesthetic that highlighted the quality of the garments. "Perfect," murmured Lucy, adjusting a last detail as the public began to enter the venue. The mix of nerves and enthusiasm kept her alert, aware of the importance of this opportunity. The event exceeded her expectations. Visitors from all fields stopped at her booth, admired her creations, took business cards, and, most importantly, placed orders. Journalists from specialized fashion and entrepreneurship magazines interviewed her briefly, fascinated not only by her designs but also by the story behind the brand. "Is it true that you created this business after discovering your husband's infidelity?" asked a young reporter. "I prefer to focus on the present," replied Lucy with a serene smile. "The important thing is not how we started, but where we are going." Around noon, the organizers gathered all the entrepreneurs for a group photograph. It was there that Lucy first noticed Daniel Stevens' tall, athletic build, slightly wavy brown hair, and a smile that lit up his whole face. Later, during an informal lunch for the participants, Lucy ended up at the same table as him. The introductions were brief. Daniel was the founder of EcoLive, a startup dedicated to sustainable home products. "Your designs are really extraordinary," he commented while they chatted. "They have their own personality. You can tell there is a philosophy behind every garment." "I try to make every piece tell a story," replied Lucy, surprised by her own ease in talking to this stranger. The conversation flowed naturally. They discovered common interests. Both valued authenticity, artisanal quality, sustainability. Daniel had started his business after years in the corporate world, looking for a purpose beyond profit. "Sometimes life pushes you in unexpected directions," he commented, "and what seems like an end turns out to be a beginning." Lucy nodded, recognizing the deep truth in those words. When she returned to her booth, she found a small line of people waiting to see her creations. The rest of the day passed between explanations, fabric samples, networking, and promises of follow-up. At the end of the day, she was exhausted but euphoric. She had secured more than 20 potential clients and interest from 2 boutiques to sell her line. While they were packing up, Daniel approached her booth. "It has been a pleasure meeting you, Lucy," he said, offering her his card. "I would love to show you some sustainable materials that might interest you for your creations." "No obligation, of course." Lucy took the card, noticing the flutter in her stomach, a sensation almost forgotten. "I would love that," she replied, surprising herself with the speed of her response. Later, with Nikki already asleep, she reviewed the contacts and orders of the day. Among them stood out a handwritten note from Daniel. "True elegance lies in reinventing oneself without losing one's essence. Congratulations on your work and your courage, Daniel." Lucy smiled, carefully keeping the note. It had been a long time since she felt that faint spark of possibility, that whisper that maybe, just maybe, life still held pleasant surprises for her. That night she slept deeply. In her dreams appeared colorful fabrics, innovative designs, a bigger atelier, and fleetingly, green eyes looking at her with sincere admiration. The weeks following the entrepreneur meeting marked a turning point for Lucy's business. Orders multiplied, inquiries didn't cease, and soon it became clear that the current small premises were insufficient. It was time to take the next step. After an exhaustive search, she found the perfect space, a large location on a central commercial street, but not overcrowded. It had double the surface area of her current atelier, allowing clear separation of design, manufacturing, fitting, and display areas. The renovation process was intense. Renovation works, custom furniture, specialized lighting. Lucy supervised every detail while keeping the current business operational. The nights were for designing the new collection that would inaugurate the space. The weekends were to be with Nikki. During this period, messages with Daniel became frequent. They started as professional but gradually evolved toward the personal. Small confidences, childhood memories, dreams for the future. They met a few times for coffee or lunch, conversations that always seemed too short. Finally, after 2 months of intense work, the day of the official opening arrived. The new Lucy Strong atelier shone with its elegant but cozy aesthetic. Walls in neutral tones highlighted the color of the garments. Spacious fitting rooms with full-length mirrors. A central area with sofas where clients could relax while waiting. In the back, visible but separated, was the work area. Cutting tables, sewing machines, mannequins in various states of creation. Lucy wanted the process to be transparent, for clients to appreciate the craftsmanship behind every garment. The team had also grown. Besides Teresa and Marina, she now counted 2 more seamstresses and a sales assistant. 6 women, including Lucy, united by the passion to create functional beauty. For the opening celebration, Lucy had sent invitations to loyal clients, friends, selected journalists, and, of course, Daniel. Marcy handled the canapes and champagne, while Nikki, dressed in a shirt and vest like a junior host, showed pride in handing out small gifts to guests. Silk scarves with the brand logo. At 7 sharp, with the place already packed with guests, Lucy officially welcomed everyone with a brief speech. "A little over a year ago, my life took an unexpected turn," began her voice, firm despite the emotion. "I could have sunk into pain and rage, but I decided to transform that energy into creation. What started as a small home workshop has evolved into this space we share today." Lucy Strong is not just a clothing brand. It is a testimony that we can always be reborn, reinvent ourselves without losing our essence. Enthusiastic applause followed her words. Among the crowd, Lucy clearly distinguished Daniel, who looked at her with a mix of admiration and something deeper he didn't dare name. The celebration proceeded animatedly. Current and potential clients examined the new collection. Journalists took notes and photographs. Friends toasted the success of the venture. In a moment of respite, Lucy approached one of the windows to observe the illuminated sign of Lucy Strong that now adorned the facade. It was then that she saw him. Stephen, standing on the sidewalk opposite, observing the interior of the shop. He didn't seem to have any intention of entering. He simply contemplated the scene from outside like a spectator of a play that no longer included him. His expression was indecipherable at that distance, but his posture conveyed a certain defeat. For an instant, their gazes crossed through the glass without hostility, without resentment, without passion, just the silent recognition of two people who once shared a life and now traveled separate paths. Daniel approached Lucy, offering her a glass of champagne. "Everything okay?" he asked, perceiving her momentary attention. She nodded, turning her attention back to the interior, to the celebration, to her present. "Perfectly," she replied with sincerity. With a gentle movement, Lucy closed the curtain, symbolically separating her new world from the old one. It was a gesture of liberation. What happened outside no longer defined her existence. She returned to the party with a renewed feeling of peace. She chatted animatedly with her guests. She thanked the praises about the collection. She enjoyed watching Nikki interact naturally among the adults. At one point, she caught an image that moved her deeply. Daniel crouching at her son's level, listening with genuine interest to the child's explanations about the drawings he had contributed to the decoration. Looking around at this space created with her vision and effort, at these people celebrating with her, Lucy experienced absolute certainty. She was exactly where she was supposed to be, doing exactly what she was supposed to do. The opening celebration had concluded with resounding success. The last guests said goodbye with hugs and promises to return soon, now as customers. Daniel, who had remained discreetly by her side during part of the evening, was now chatting animatedly with Marcy while she gathered a sleepy Nikki. "I'll take him home in my car," offered Marcy, hugging her friend. "You stay as long as you need to close up. It's been a perfect night, Lucy. I am so proud of you." Little by little, the place emptied. Only Daniel remained, helping to collect scattered glasses and arrange chairs. "You don't have to stay," said Lucy, moved by his gesture. "I know," he replied with a calm smile. "I want to." They were putting away the last bottles of champagne when the door, which they had left ajar for ventilation, opened completely. Stephen entered with a hesitant step, clearly uncomfortable. The contrast with the man Lucy had known was notable, always impeccable and self-assured. Now he showed slumped shoulders and a tired look. His suit, although expensive, seemed foreign to his new diminished attitude. "Sorry to interrupt," he said with a dull voice. "I saw the party was over. I just wanted to congratulate you." Lucy tensed momentarily but then relaxed. "Thank you, Stephen." Daniel, perceiving the situation, stepped away discreetly toward the design area, giving them space but remaining visible. "It's an impressive place," continued Stephen, looking around with genuine admiration. "Nikki must be very proud of you." "He is," confirmed Lucy. "Did you come just for that?" Stephen hesitated, searching for the right words. "I also wanted to apologize. I know it's late, probably too late, but I needed to tell you." Lucy observed him in silence, noticing the new furrows on his forehead, the premature gray hairs at his temples. "I've been reflecting a lot," he continued in the face of her silence. "About us. About my mistakes. I missed you, Lucy. I miss our family." "What family, Stephen?" she asked without hostility, only with sincere curiosity. The one you were willing to abandon for another life? The one you erased from your history when it suited you? I made a terrible mistake, he admitted, running a hand through his hair in a gesture of frustration. I know it now. I've lost so much. What you lost wasn't a woman, replied Lucy with serenity. It was your home, your son, and your name. Stephen looked at her without understanding. Your name, yes. That name that is now stained by your lies. That name that no longer signifies integrity or trust. While I built Lucy strong, you destroyed Stephen Montgomery. Her words seemed to impact Stephen deeply. He lowered his head, assimilating the truth they contained. You're right, he murmured finally. I destroyed it all with my own hands. They remained in silence for a few moments, surrounded by Lucy's creations, tangible testimonies of her rebirth. You really have created something extraordinary here, he commented, taking a last look at the atelier. You were always stronger than I thought. Than you yourself thought. With those words, he went out into the New York night, gently closing the door behind him. Daniel approached Lucy slowly, respecting the emotional moment. Are you okay? He asked, with genuine concern. She nodded, surprised by how light she felt. There was no resentment or sadness in her heart, only the tranquility of having definitely closed a chapter of her life. Perfectly fine, she replied with an authentic smile. The silence that followed was loaded with possibilities. Daniel took a step closer to her, his eyes seeking permission in Lucy's. I've wanted to do this all night, he murmured, gently closing the distance between them. The kiss was delicate, almost shy at first, then more sure upon feeling Lucy's response. Her hands found the way to his shoulders, while Daniel's rested respectfully on her waist. Outside, on the sidewalk in front of the atelier, Stephen had stopped for a moment before continuing his path. Through the glass, he glimpsed the scene. Lucy in the arms of another man, her profile illuminated not only by the shop lights but by something internal, a happiness he hadn't seen in her for a long time. He lowered his head and walked away, finally understanding the magnitude of what he had lost. A treasure impossible to recover. A year had passed since the inauguration of the atelier. The New York spring unfolded its splendor, flooding with light the spacious apartment Lucy had acquired 3 months ago. Located just 2 blocks from her business, it had spacious rooms, a terrace for breakfast under the morning sun, and most importantly, the cozy atmosphere of a true home. This Sunday morning, Lucy watched notifications on her tablet smiling while savoring a coffee. The official page of Lucy Strong on social media had already surpassed 50,000 followers. Look, Mommy! Nikki's enthusiastic voice interrupted her thoughts. The boy, who would turn 7 next month, ran toward her with a perfectly folded paper airplane. Daniel taught me how to make one that really flies. Behind Nikki came Daniel, with slightly messy hair and that smile that continued to accelerate Lucy's heart. He had officially moved in with them only a month ago, although he had been part of their lives much longer. He's quite the aeronautical engineer, commented Daniel, winking at Lucy. You should have seen him calculating the exact folds. We're going to test it on the terrace, exclaimed Nikki, pulling Daniel's hand. You too, Mommy. In a moment, honey, I'll finish checking something and join you. While the two went out laughing, Lucy watched them with a mix of gratitude and wonder. The naturalness with which Daniel had entered their lives, the genuine connection he had established with Nikki from day one, the patience with which he had built a relationship based on mutual respect and honesty. Everything seemed like a dream after so much storm time. She returned to her tablet to reply to some comments. A particular photo caught her attention. Lauren, elegant in a tailored suit designed by Lucy, announced the opening of her own sustainable event company in collaboration with EcoLive, Daniel's business. That uncomfortable meeting in the Boston Cathedral had evolved, against all odds, into a fruitful professional relationship and an unexpected friendship. Life had surprising ways of intertwining paths. Stephen was still present in Nikki's life, although differently than both had imagined. He wasn't the perfect father, but he sincerely strove to be a present one. His relationship with Lucy had transformed into a cordial respect focused exclusively on Nikki's well-being. Mommy, come! It's flying super high! Her son's excited voice brought her back to the present. Her phone vibrated with a notification. It was a message from Marcy with a link to an article, The 50 Most Influential Women Entrepreneurs in New York. The name Lucy Strong appeared at number 12. She smiled, but not from ego. The true achievement wasn't in that public recognition, but in the inner peace she had conquered, in knowing her son was growing up in an environment of honesty and affection, in having learned to trust again both in others and in herself. Lucy joined them on the terrace, Nicky jumping with excitement while his paper plane described perfect circles in the air, Daniel applauding every successful flight. The plants they had cultivated together blooming in their pots. A picture of everyday happiness that had once seemed unattainable. "What are you thinking about?" asked Daniel, approaching her while Nicky ran to retrieve his plane that had landed in a corner. "About how much everything has changed," replied Lucy. "About how lucky I am." "Luck has little to do with it. You built this life with determination and courage." "I wouldn't have achieved it alone," she admitted, gently resting her head on his shoulder. "No one achieves anything truly important alone," he replied. "But it was you who took the first step, who decided to transform pain into creation." Lucy intertwined her fingers with his, feeling that familiar warmth that never ceased to surprise her. "Life is that," she reflected. "We can't control what happens to us, but we can control how we incorporate it into our story." The pain of the past hadn't completely disappeared. The scars would always remain as a reminder of the path traveled, but they no longer defined her present nor limited her future. That future that now embraced them, full of possibilities, built with the resistant threads of truth, courage, and genuine love. A future that Lucy had sewn stitch by stitch with the same dedication with which she created her most beautiful designs. Did Lucy's story move you? Don't leave without leaving your like and commenting which part made you cry. Subscribe for more stories of strong women who overcome betrayal and find true love. Share with that friend who needs inspiration to get up after a disappointment. And don't miss our next video.